Welcome to Wildly Wonderful Crafts. If you are new here, welcome in. If you are a returning subscriber, welcome back. I appreciate everyone. In this video, I have created some beautiful high-end spring decor using supplies from the Dollar Tree, thrift stores, or repurposing things you have around the house. And please be sure to hang around to the end to see all of the finished products and how I style them in my home. And as always, I will link all the supplies in the description below or the equivalents. For this first project, we are going to get 3 frames. You can get frames from the Dollar Tree. I got these from Dollar General. They were 90% off, so I got these wood frames for 80 cents each. And what I'm doing is I'm just going to get a hammer and smack the center out, and it should pull all of that inner part out. I'm going to be using these pillow covers I purchased from Amazon. They were extras that I had on hand, and they look like canvas, so it's going to make it look like a frame canvas. And I will link these pillow covers below. I'm going to be reusing the inserts from the picture frame. 2 of them were in good shape, the third one was not, so I'm just tracing the insert on a piece of cardboard, and then I'm going to cut it out. And once this is cut out, then what I'm going to do is hot glue all 3 inserts on some Dollar Tree poster board, and then I'm cutting it out. And then I'm just getting some sandpaper and sanding down the edges so none of that white poster board sticks through when you put it on the frame. And for the cardboard insert that I made, I'm just getting masking tape and I'm attaching it all the way around so the edge has a neater appearance. And now I'm just getting the pillow cover and I am cutting along the seams, removing the top from the bottom. And then I'm getting that frame and I'm tracing around the frame, centering the picture that I want. And you can get 2 canvas prints from just one of the pillow covers. And here I am tracing out the other frame. Once you have all 3 of your canvases marked and outlined, then you need to cut them out. This next step is totally optional. I whitewashed these flowers. The one on the left is the original, the one on the right is the whitewash. All I did was dip my paintbrush in the water, then dip it in some white paint, and I did this every time I made a pass on the canvas, and you want to cover the whole canvas with it. You want to make sure you blend in that white very well. And then once that's completed, you want to set it aside until it's completely dry. If you lay that up against the poster board when it's wet, the poster board will bubble up. And here's what it looks like once it's completely covered. Now once it dries, it's going to dry slightly a little bit darker, but I really like the sun faded look of it. And you will need to repeat this process on the other 2 canvases as well. Now this step is completely optional. If you want to keep the wood the same color, if you want to paint your frame white or any other color for spring, it's totally up to you. I'm using a folk art coffee bean paint, and I'm working in small sections and I'm applying a very thick coat. And I'm going to use this as my stain. I'm not a fan of wood stain. The smell is just horrendous to me. But we're just going to apply a thick coat on it, and then I'm going to get a paper towel, and then we are going to rub that off, and that is going to give this frame a nice rich dark wood look. You got to rub it in a little bit to get a good bit of that paint off, but once it's done, it looks just like a stain, and you can see that wood grain right through it. Here's a comparison side by side of the original and the one that I stained. Let me know which one you would prefer. Now I'm lining up the canvas with the insert, making sure all the sides are even, doing any extra trimming around to make sure everything is lined up perfectly, and trimming off any excess. Now I'm applying Aleene's industrial glue from the Dollar Tree all around that insert, and then I'm gluing down the canvases and smoothing them down as I glue them down. And now with that same folk art coffee bean paint, we are painting this all the way around the sides of that canvas so that it blends in well with the frame. When you separate the frame from the insert, you're going to have these little tacks sticking up. I keep them in to add extra bonding to the canvas, and I also hot glue all the way around the inside of the frame to make sure that it's bonding securely. And stick around to the end of the video to see how I styled it. For our next project, we are going to use a thrift store canvas. What I did is I removed the canvas and the staples from the frame. We're just going to use the wood frame. And the dimensions of this frame are 12 by 16. Now I'm getting a decorative napkin, and what you want to do is you want to separate the layers. So I just got some masking tape, got it in the corner, and pulled the layers off. You just want a single ply napkin. Now I'm getting a piece of parchment paper and I'm just ironing out that center crease that's in the napkin. With some Dollar Tree poster board, I'm tracing out the shape of the frame on the poster board, and then I'm going to cut it out. I'm applying some matte Mod Podge onto the poster board and making sure you get every area of that, especially the corners, because that seems to be the place that always comes up. Now take your decorative napkin and you want to lay it down on that poster board and smooth out all the wrinkles. Once that's dried, you want to go in with an additional coat of Mod Podge on top just to seal all that in. Now, just like the previous project, we get that coffee bean folk art paint in small sections, and then get your paper towel, and then you want to rub the excess off to make it look like a dark stain. Like I said, this is optional. You can leave it the natural wood. You can paint it any color your heart desires. I just like the dark wood look, and it fits in with my decor in my home. I got this wood egg shape from a previous Easter decoration, but Dollar Tree also sells wood egg shapes. And I'm using some plaster Waverly chalk paint, but you can also use just any white acrylic paint, and I used 2 coats to completely cover the egg. And be sure to cover the front and the sides of the egg. We won't need to be covering the back. Now I'm using some folk art paint, pink paint, and the name of the paint is Rose. And I got this letter from Walmart. I believe it was 99 cents. And I believe I painted it with 2 coats of this acrylic paint, but you can use any pink paint you want. Just make sure you do the front and all of the sides. I want to apologize because I thought that I was recording this next step, but apparently I didn't, so that's my fault. What I'm doing next is the insert that we made with the napkin and the poster board. You want to size it up to your frame, and if it's a little larger, trim it down to match your frame. And then we're going to hot glue that insert to your frame. And then to the right of that frame, you see you have your white egg. You want to glue whatever letter you chose, hot glue that down to the center of your egg. And then we're going to take the egg and glue that down to the center of your insert. And I got a picture frame bracket and just hammered it into the back of the frame, but you can use command hooks and hang out to the end to see how I style this. For project number 3, we are going to use these 2 Dollar Tree shelf sitters, and they come with these little wooden flowers on them. I just take a cake scraper you can get from the Dollar Tree and scrape them off. And then what I can't get off, I just use a piece of sandpaper and try to sand it down to get the excess off. And make sure you remove the tags on the back because this is the side we are going to be using. Now what you want to do, you can get some white acrylic paint. My first coat I did acrylic paint, but the second coat I just used a white spray paint to cover the front, the back, and the sides completely with white. With a piece of Dollar Tree scrap wood, I cut it in half, and then I measured that wood to be the same size as the bottom of the shelf sitter. And all I did was just place it on that wood and mark it. And the measurements are 5 1/16 by 4 1/16. You also want to paint those wood pieces white as well. Now that you have all 4 pieces painted white, we are going to get the Dollar Tree, was it wallpaper squares? I think that's what it's called. And we are going to measure our shelf sitter up against the wallpaper to make sure we have the correct fit. And I'm just cutting out a rectangle piece so it's close to the size of the shelf sitter, but it's not exactly. You want to have a little bit of overhang on each side. Then you want to peel your wallpaper off and position it on top of your shelf sitter and smooth out any bubbles or wrinkles. You also want to repeat this step on the other shelf sitter, and also on the 2 blocks of wood that we cut to make the base. Now I'm using 120 grit sandpaper to sand down all the edges, and this will give it the cleanest cut around your shelf sitter. And you want to do this on all pieces of your shelf sitter and the base. Now for one of the bases, I didn't have enough wallpaper sheet, so I just used as much as I could to the edge, and then I tried to match up the pattern as much as I could, and then I'm just laying them down like I did the others and then sanding off the edges. Now it's time to attach the shelf sitter to the base. Now you have options on how you want to attach it. You can use any glue you want. E6000 would probably be the best for this project. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drill 2 holes in the base and screw the base onto the shelf sitter. And it's absolutely your preference on whatever method you want to choose. Just make sure that it bonds completely to your base. Now with Dollar Tree Nautical rope, what we're going to do is cut a length that we need, and you want to hot glue down the ends, otherwise they will fray. And then we are going to attach the nautical rope all the way around the arch and the front piece of the base of your bookend. And off camera, I repeated this step on the base, and that's what it looks like when the front of the base is covered with that nautical rope. And I decided to go back in with that nautical rope and just do a second row on just the arch to make it look more complete. It kind of looked halfway done. And here's what it looks like when it's done. Now you let me know, would you leave it plain like this or would you add something extra? I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to add something extra. So I'm getting these embroidery hoops that are a little over 3.5 inches wide, and I'm hot gluing them down to some burlap. Once they're glued down, you're going to cut around that embroidery hoop. Then I'm getting these little pink roses, and I'm trimming off that little piece of the stem, and I'm hot gluing all the petals to that base, otherwise all the petals are going to fall off. And then you just want to glue them to the burlap, and I got 2 eucalyptus leaves to cover up where the mechanism is to the embroidery hoop. You want to do that on both hoops. Now you want to take that piece and you want to center it onto your bookend, and then you want to get some hot glue and glue all the way around your burlap and glue that onto your bookend. Now some of my petals still came a little bit loose, so what I did is I just went in and hot glued the petals so they stayed down to the burlap and they also stay down to the base. For project number 4, we are going to make a fairy garden cloche. You are going to need an empty 2-liter bottle, and I'll leave in the description box below how I removed all the glue in the label. You're also going to need, I got this little mushroom house at the Dollar Tree. I also got this little gnome sleeping by the mushroom, but I decided not to use him. Now I've got a cork, and I also got 2 lids. The smaller lid is 3 3/4 inch, and the larger lid is 4 inches wide. Up next, I'm going to prime both the lids. You can either use spray paint or acrylic paint. It doesn't have to be completely covered. And what I'm doing is I'm scuffing up both lids because they're shiny plastic, making sure that the paint will adhere to it. Once your primer is dry on your lids, then you want to get Territorial Beige from Apple Barrel, and you want to apply 2 coats, letting them dry in between each coat. Now I always have an inspo picture beside me just to get ideas on how I want to make my projects, but I never copy anybody's projects. I just keep them on hand just to kind of look and see how I want to make them. So what we're doing now is getting some tumbling tower blocks, and we are going to hot glue 2 blocks, one to the furthest back and one to right up above the circle that's in that lid. And you want to dry fit your little house to make sure they are resting on there evenly. All we're doing is making supports to raise the house up. And then what I'm doing next is I'm just gluing 2 more tumbling tower blocks on top of the first ones that we glued down. Once you have the second layer of tumbling tower blocks laid down, then you want to hot glue your little mushroom house to the blocks. Now we are going to get 4 more tumbling tower blocks, and we're going to paint them with that just a chocolate brown paint. It really doesn't matter. We're just going to use it as a stain for the steps. You just want to put a thick coat on, and then wipe it off. And you want to do that with all 4 of your blocks. Now we're going to get the first block and glue it directly underneath your house, and the second block and glue that on top. For the next stair step, I cut out a piece of cardboard, the same size as the tumbling tower block, and we're going to glue that down next because we're trying to make the steps stagger down low. And then add the 4th tumbling tower block. Then you want to dry fit your cloche to make sure it still fits around the base. Up next, I cut up a piece of styrofoam ball that I got from the Dollar Tree, but you can use a pool noodle, anything just to fill in all the spaces. And what I'm doing is I'm making it higher at the top of the steps and lower as it goes down. And you want to put that foam all the way around, even on the back of those tumbling tower blocks. Now I'm getting 3 fake blades of grass that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm gluing them together. And I'm getting a pair of scissors, poking a hole down into that foam, and I'm hot gluing it so it arches around the top of that, the roof of the mushroom house. And I'm putting the cloche over top of it to make sure that it fits and it doesn't look too bulky inside of there. Now I'm getting a Dollar Tree fern, and I'm cutting the top of it off so that it's a smaller part of the fern, and we're gluing it to the back side of the little mushroom house. I also repeated that step. I added a piece of fern on the back of the mushroom house and on the other side as well, keeping them just about the same size. With some reindeer moss that I got from the Dollar Tree, I'm hot gluing it all around every spot where we put that styrofoam. And you might want to use like your little silicone spatula so you don't burn your fingers, because I'm always constantly burning my fingers, so please be careful. And here's what it looks like once all the moss is glued down on the sides, the back, and even in front of that little step. Now I'm just cutting the tips off of some of my greenery just to keep it small, and I'm just adding a little extra around the steps. And I got these little purple flowers from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just cutting the tips of them off, and I'm just putting them different places around the steps to look like little purple flowers. And here's what it looks like with the purple flowers. As you can see, I'm going to point it out right there. And this is what it looks like once I've added all the greenery and filled it in. I also added some fairy lights, and you can tuck the battery pack underneath the base once it's complete. And now I'm gluing the smaller base to the larger base. Now I'm hot gluing the cork into the top of the soda bottle. And I'm getting some Dollar Tree jute twine, and I'm just wrapping it around the top part of the soda bottle so it conceals it and it just looks like a glass cloche. Once all the twine is glued onto the lid, then what we're doing is putting the cloche on top of the base. Now I didn't glue mine down because once you put the moss on it, it has a very tight fit, but you can glue it down if you would like. And then what we're going to do next is just put the battery pack to the lights underneath the base. And hang around to the end to see the finished product. This next project, we are going to get a Dollar Tree bicycle wreath form, and I'm also getting a placemat that I got from the Dollar General. It's a woven one, and all you got to do is remove the first stitch, and you can remove a few rows. And what I'm doing is removing a few rows to match the size of the bicycle wreath. And then once I get it to where I want it, I'm going to trim off the excess and glue it down, and I'm leaving that frayed edge. And I'm also using Gorilla Glue hot glue sticks, which is going to help bond the metal to this woven placemat. And you want to glue down all the spokes in the center. And then I got a picture frame from the Dollar Tree, removing the back. I also have a free printable of a bird. And then what we're going to do is take out the glass from the picture frame and trace it on a piece of cardboard. And then we're going to cut it out. And then I'm going to center that on that bird picture. Cut that out. And then I'm getting some Aleene's industrial glue from the Dollar Tree, gluing that down to the cardboard and gluing the paper down to it. You just want to make sure you center that bird in the frame before you glue it down. Make sure you have it where you want it. Once you have that glued down, you want to put the back on to your frame, and then we are going to glue it down onto our wreath. Up next, we are going to get some greenery. I got this from Temu. I'm not sure if it's bamboo or eucalyptus, but you can use any greenery that you desire, and Dollar Tree sells a lot of greenery. And when gluing the greenery down, just glue down the main stem and not the leaves, because you want to give it a more natural look and have it free flowing just like leaves would in nature. And now I'm adding a second leaf garland, and as I'm laying this down, I'm intertwining it with the first set of leaves and hot gluing it in place. And now I'm adding a wisteria vine, and we are making this a very neutral wreath. If you want to add more colorful flowers or a colorful bow, feel free to do that. And now I'm getting a plastic Dollar Tree pot, and I'm putting a pool noodle in the center of it and making sure you leave about a 1/2 inch space up at the top. We're getting Spanish moss and gluing it all the way around. What we're making is a bird's nest in here, so you want to keep the center lower and just keep gluing that Spanish moss around until it forms the shape of the nest. And I also glued some of that moss on the outer edge of the flower pot and kept it very uneven, just to make it look like an actual bird's nest. I got these 3 little foam eggs from another project, and I'm just gluing them down into the nest. And then I'm getting the flower pot and I'm gluing it at an angle onto the wreath. And you just want to make sure that you hold it in place until it completely dries. And I got 2 sizes of jute twine and this neutral ribbon. I'm not exactly sure where I got it, but I just pulled up 2 loops and turned that into a long bow. And I attached it to the wreath. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a loop, and then I'm going to hot glue it in place and pull up a second loop and hot glue it in place. And that gives it a curly look as it's cascading down the wreath. And you want to do that on the other side of the tail of the ribbon. And that's what it looks like once it's complete. Like I said, you can use any color ribbon, any color flowers, anything your heart's desires. You don't have to use what I use. And now I'm just getting another piece of jute twine, and I'm making a hanger on the back of the wreath. Here are the completed frame canvases that I made. My family tells me it feels like it's got a vintage feel, but you let me know what you think. This one was very fun to make and very fun to style. And here is the framed monogram letter. I think it still follows in with the granny chic. I'm a granny, so I think it fits me very well, but yeah, let me know what you think. And here are the beautiful spring bookends that I created. My family always has to weigh in on all my craft projects, and they're on the fence. Some of them say leave the flower on, some of them say take the flower off. Let me know what you think. Here is the little fairy garden cloche. This is one of my favorite that I've made. I just want to move in there and go take a nap. And I really feel if you didn't tell anybody that was a plastic soda bottle, they wouldn't know. And here's what it looks like at night. Here is the bird spring wreath that I made, and my daughter looked at it and said, "Mom, it needs something on the left side." So I went back into my craft room because I agreed with her after I hung it up, and I added more flowers on the left as I did on the right, and I agree with her. I think it looks much better. So let me know what you think. Do you like the original one or the one that I fixed? And as always, if you enjoy my content, give me a big thumbs up, and always like, subscribe, and comment. Thank you so much. Let me know if you try these and let me know how they turn out. Thank you.